The first time I realized my friend's mom was no longer waiting for her fiancé, she was standing outside a coffee shop with a man I had never seen before. I didn't know his name. I didn't know why she was with him. And honestly, I didn't know why that bothered me. Until then, my mornings had been almost painfully ordinary. I worked a few hours before class, usually from the same corner table at a small coffee shop near the bus stop. I liked the back wall because nobody could accidentally sit beside me. I would open my laptop, order black coffee, and pretend I was busy enough not to notice everyone else arriving in pairs. That morning, I was halfway through an email I had already rewritten twice when a familiar voice came from behind me. Still drinking that? I looked up. It was Laura, 44, my friend Daniel's mother. She had a paper cup in one hand and her car keys in the other. Her hair was loosely tied back, and there was something different about her face that I couldn't quite place. "Tastes terrible," I said. She looked at my coffee. "Then why do you keep buying it?" "I guess I'm committed." A small smile appeared. "That's one word for it." She sat at the table beside mine while waiting for her order. She had started remembering mine months ago, which shouldn't have meant anything. But it did. "Black coffee," she said to the cashier without looking at me. I glanced at her hands. She was folding the edge of her receipt into smaller and smaller squares. "You okay?" I asked. She stopped folding. "Yeah." The answer came too quickly. I waited. She looked toward the window. "Actually, no." That was how I learned about the fiancé. Not all at once. Laura didn't make speeches. She just stared at the rain collecting on the glass and said, "I found out yesterday." I didn't ask what she found. Maybe I already knew. Her engagement ring was still on her finger, but she kept turning it around with her thumb. Daniel hadn't told me anything. I wasn't surprised. He wasn't the kind of guy who talked about his mother's problems, and I wasn't exactly the kind of guy people called when they wanted to discuss feelings. Most of my conversations lately were unfinished texts. I'd type something, stare at it, then lock my phone. Sometimes I wondered how many things in my life had never happened simply because I hadn't pressed send. Laura picked up her coffee. "You don't have to sit here." "I know." "You have class." "I know." She gave me a sideways look. "You always say that." "I know." That made her laugh quietly. It wasn't a big laugh, just enough to change the room around her. Then her phone buzzed. She looked at the screen and didn't answer. A few seconds later, it buzzed again. This time she stood. "I have to go." "Daniel." "No." She hesitated. "My boss." I looked at her. "Your boss." "Long story." She slipped her phone into her coat pocket. Then she looked at me for a second longer than she normally did. "Don't tell Daniel yet." "I won't." Outside, a dark sedan pulled up. A man stepped out and opened the passenger door for her. He looked older than me, confident, completely unfamiliar. Laura stopped beside the car and turned back. For a moment, neither of us said anything. Then she smiled faintly. "I'll see you around." I watched the car disappear into traffic. My coffee had gone cold. A minute later, my phone buzzed. A message from Laura. "Can you meet me tonight? I need to tell you something before Daniel finds out." I read it twice. Then a third time. And for the first time, I wondered if the thing she was afraid Daniel would find out had anything to do with the man in the car, or with me. I met Laura that evening at her house. Not because I thought I could help. Mostly because I couldn't stop wondering what she wanted to tell me. Her house looked exactly the same as always. Same shoes beside the door, same half-dead plant near the window, same framed photograph of Daniel at 16 smiling like he'd just won something. Laura noticed me looking at it. "He still hates that picture." "He should." She smiled. "He says his hair looked better than that." It definitely didn't. For a second she looked almost normal. Then she walked into the kitchen and filled 2 mugs with tea. "You take sugar." "You know I don't." "I know." She paused with the spoon in her hand. "Sorry." "For what?" "Nothing." She put the spoon down. We sat across from each other at the kitchen table. The silence wasn't uncomfortable at first. Then it was. She finally said, "His name is Richard. The guy from this morning." She nodded. "My boss." I waited. "He's been my boss for 3 years, nothing happened." The way she said nothing made me look at my tea. "Until yesterday." She didn't answer immediately. "No," she said eventually, "until I found out what my fiancé had been doing." I looked up. He wasn't cheating with Richard. I didn't think he was. "I know." She rubbed her thumb along the rim of her mug. "I found messages, hotel reservations, things I probably shouldn't have read, but once you see something like that." Her voice faded. I didn't push. After a while she said, "The strange part is I wasn't even angry at first." "What were you?" She gave a tired little laugh. "I kept thinking about how many times I had asked him if something was wrong." She looked at me. "And he kept saying no." I knew that feeling. Not the cheating. The other part. Asking a question and already knowing the answer wasn't going to come. I told her something I hadn't planned to. My dad used to leave the television on when he was alone. She tilted her head. "Why?" "I don't know, maybe he didn't like the house being quiet." "Did it work?" "No." She smiled sadly. "No," she repeated. The room went quiet again. I could have left then. Probably should have. She was Daniel's mother, I was Daniel's friend. She was 44 and I was 24. There were 20 years between us, plus a friendship sitting directly in the middle of whatever this strange thing was becoming. Even thinking about it felt wrong. So I concentrated on the tea. Laura reached across the table and took my empty mug. "You barely drank any." "It got cold." "You're terrible at finishing things." I looked at her. She looked back. Then she smiled. "Sorry, that sounded personal." "It was accurate." She laughed softly. When she handed the mug back, her fingers brushed mine. Neither of us moved immediately. It lasted maybe a second. Maybe less. Then she pulled away. "Don't come here tomorrow," she said. I frowned. "Why?" "Because Daniel might be here." "That doesn't answer the question." She looked down at her hands. "No, it doesn't." I stood. At the door she called my name. I turned. She was still sitting at the table watching me. "Thank you," she said. "For what?" She shook her head. "Just thank you." I nodded and left. I don't know why that moment stayed with me. Maybe because, for 1 second, it felt like someone finally saw me. The next morning, I did exactly what Laura told me. I stayed away. I went to class, worked my shift, and took the long way home even though it added 20 minutes. It should have been easy. It wasn't. My phone stayed face down on the desk. No messages from Laura. No messages from Daniel either. By late afternoon, I had checked the screen enough times to feel stupid about it. Then Daniel called. "You busy?" "Not really." "Come over." There was something strange in his voice. I found him in his mother's kitchen when I arrived. He was standing beside the refrigerator, eating something straight from a container. "My mom isn't here," he said. I figured. "She went out with Richard." I stopped. Daniel noticed. "You know him?" "No." "You've met him?" "Once." He studied my face for a second. "Mom says he's helping her with some work stuff." "Okay." Daniel nodded, but he didn't look convinced. Then he changed the subject. We talked about class, a football game, a professor we both disliked. Normal things. Except I kept hearing the same sentence in my head. "She went out with Richard." When I left, I passed Laura's car parked across the street. She was sitting behind the wheel. Our eyes met through the windshield. She didn't wave. Neither did I. I kept walking. My phone buzzed before I reached the corner. "Don't come over tonight." I stared at the message. Then another one appeared. "Please." I typed, "Are you okay?" Deleted it. Typed, "What happened?" Deleted that too. Finally. "Okay." 3 dots appeared. Disappeared. Appeared again. Nothing came. That night I couldn't sleep. The next day I saw her at the coffee shop. She was sitting at my usual table. When she noticed me, she immediately stood. I thought you weren't coming here anymore. You told me not to come to your house. She looked at me. I know. That's different. I know. Neither of us smiled. She picked up her cup. I should go. You don't have to. Her fingers tightened around the cardboard sleeve. You're Daniel's friend. I know. And I'm his mother. I know. And you're 24. I looked away. She exhaled through her nose. See, this is exactly why I shouldn't be talking to you. I wanted to say something. Anything. Instead, I watched her straighten a napkin that was already straight. Then the bell above the door rang. Daniel walked in. He stopped when he saw us. His eyes moved from me to his mother. What are you two doing here? Laura answered too quickly. Having coffee. Daniel looked at me. You didn't tell me. I didn't think I needed permission. The words came out sharper than I intended. Laura looked at me. A warning. Or maybe fear. Daniel shrugged. Whatever. He ordered something and sat across the room. Laura leaned closer. Don't what? Make this harder. Her voice was barely above a whisper. I looked at her. You think I'm making it hard? She didn't answer. Her eyes dropped to my mouth for half a second. Then she looked away. I felt my chest tighten. She stepped closer, almost without realizing it. I could smell her coffee. She whispered, "This can't happen." I said, "I know." Neither of us moved. For one suspended second, there was almost no distance between us. Then Daniel called from across the room. Mom. Laura stepped back. And whatever had almost happened disappeared before either of us could name it. 3 days passed before Laura called me. Not texted. Called. I almost didn't answer. Hello. There was a pause. Are you working? No. Another pause. Can you walk with me? I looked out my window. It had started raining lightly. Now. If that's okay. I didn't ask where. 20 minutes later, I found her sitting on a bench near the park behind her office. She had no umbrella. Her hair was slightly damp, and she was holding the same black thermos she'd carried the first time I'd met her. You walked here. I needed air. You could have opened a window. She gave me a tired look. Thank you for that. I sat beside her. For a while, we watched people crossing the wet pavement. Neither of us spoke. She unscrewed the thermos and poured coffee into the lid. Still black, she asked. You remember? I remember too much. The word stayed between us. She looked down. I broke things off with him. I nodded. I figured. How? You stopped wearing the ring. Her fingers moved unconsciously toward her empty ring finger. I didn't want anyone asking questions. Did Daniel? He did. She swallowed. He asked if I was seeing someone. My stomach tightened. What did you say? That I wasn't. I looked at her. She kept staring ahead. That wasn't exactly a lie, she said. The rain became a little heavier. I didn't know where to put my hands. So I put them between my knees. Laura noticed. I've been trying to stay away from you. I know. I stopped going to the coffee shop. I noticed. She gave me a quick glance. You noticed? Yeah. A small breath escaped her, almost a laugh. That's the problem. What is? She turned toward me. You notice. I didn't answer. Her eyes were tired. Not sad exactly. Just tired of pretending certain things weren't there. I don't know what you want from me, she said. I don't know either. That isn't good enough. I know. She looked away. I keep thinking about that day in the coffee shop. So do I. I shouldn't. I know. She pressed her lips together. Then she said quietly, when you left my house, I wanted you to stay. I looked at her. She continued before I could speak. And when you stopped coming around, I was relieved. A pause. Then I was angry. Why? Because I missed you. The word seemed to surprise her. She lowered her eyes. I shouldn't have said that. Why? Because you're Daniel's friend. I know. And because I'm 44. I know. And because I don't know whether this is real or whether I'm just hurt, and you're the first person who looked at me like I wasn't. She stopped. Like you weren't what? She shook her head. Forget it. No. She looked at me then. For once she didn't pull away. I don't want to be someone's reaction to being hurt, she whispered. You're not. How do you know? I didn't. That was the honest answer. So I said I don't. She stared at me. The distance between us seemed smaller than it had any right to be. Her hand rested on the bench between us. Mine was close enough that I could feel the warmth of it. Neither moved. Then she whispered, if I asked you to leave right now. I looked at her hand. Then back at her face. Would you? I didn't answer. And she didn't ask again. She didn't call the next morning. Or the morning after that. By the fourth day, I stopped checking my phone every few minutes. At least I told myself I had. Then I saw her at the coffee shop. She was sitting with Richard. I almost turned around. Richard said something. Laura smiled. Not the tired smile I'd seen lately. A real one. I stood outside for a few seconds with my hand on the door. Then I went in. She saw me immediately. Her smile disappeared. Hey, I said. Hi. Richard looked between us. You're Daniel's friend, right? Yeah. He nodded. I've heard about you. I didn't know what that meant. Laura picked up her coffee. We were just finishing. I can leave. No, she said quickly. Then she looked at Richard. Actually, I think we should go. He frowned. You're sure? Yes. She stood. For 1 second, I thought she might say something to me. Instead, she walked past without looking. The bell above the door rang. And she was gone. I sat at the table they'd left behind. There were 2 cups. One nearly full. One empty. I don't know why I stared at them for so long. Maybe because I had started imagining things that weren't mine to imagine. That night Daniel came over. He didn't mention his mother at first. We played video games badly and ordered food we barely touched. Then he said she's thinking about leaving town. I looked at him. What? Just for a while. Why? He shrugged. Richard offered her a position at another branch. My chest went strangely quiet. Does she want to go? I don't know. He leaned back. She said she needs a clean start. I nodded. Probably good for her. Daniel looked at me. You okay? Yeah. He waited. I smiled. Just tired. He didn't believe me. Neither did I. Later that night, I found an old message from Laura still sitting in my phone. Can you meet me tonight? I had never replied. It was from 2 weeks earlier. Before the park. Before the almost kiss. Before everything became something neither of us knew how to name. I stared at it. Then I opened the keyboard. I wanted to stay. I stopped. Deleted it. Tried again. Are you really leaving? Deleted that too. Finally I typed. If you want me to come, I'll come. My thumb hovered over send. Then I imagined Daniel. His trust. Her empty ring finger. The 20 years between us. Richard waiting outside that coffee shop. I locked the phone. The next morning, I walked past Laura's house on my way to class. Her curtains were open. The driveway was empty. There was a cardboard box beside the front door. I slowed down. Then kept walking. I could have knocked. I didn't. I could have sent the message. I didn't. I didn't feel heartbroken. I felt paused. Like life had forgotten to finish the sentence. And for the first time, I wondered whether Laura had forgotten it too. I went back the next morning. I told myself it was because I needed to return the thermos. That wasn't true. The thermos was sitting on my desk. I had washed it twice. When Laura opened the door, she looked surprised. You came. Yeah. She glanced at the thermos in my hand. You didn't have to bring that. I know. She stepped aside. Come in. The house felt different with the boxes stacked along the hallway. Quieter. Like it had already started leaving without her. She walked into the kitchen. I followed. For a moment, neither of us knew what to do. Then she said, I'm leaving Friday. Richard's job. She nodded. 3 months, maybe longer. I looked at the floor. You should go. She looked at me. I know. I hated how quickly she agreed. I put the thermos on the counter. I almost didn't come. I know. How? You stood outside for a minute. I looked at her. You saw me. Through the window. A small silence. Then she said, I almost didn't open the door. Why? Because I knew what you were going to say. I don't think you do. She folded her arms. Then tell me. My mouth went dry. This was the part I had been avoiding. Not the age difference. Not Daniel. Not Richard. The simple thing underneath all of it. I don't want you to leave without knowing that I wasn't just there because you were hurt. She didn't move. I liked being around you before I understood what that meant. Her eyes dropped. I tried to make it disappear. I know. I stopped coming to the coffee shop, I stopped texting, I kept telling myself I was doing the right thing. You were. I wasn't. She looked up. I swallowed. Because I was still thinking about you. Her face changed slightly. Not dramatically. Just enough. She sat down at the kitchen table. I stayed standing. I don't know what happens if I say this, she said. Neither do I. What about Daniel's? I don't know. That matters. I know. She rubbed her thumb over the empty place where her ring had been. I can't promise you anything. I didn't come for a promise. Then why? I looked at her. Because I didn't want to spend the rest of my life wondering if I should have said something. She breathed out slowly. Then she reached for the thermos. You brought this back. Yeah. You always leave things behind. I guess I do. She smiled. It was small. Real. Then she stood and walked toward me. She stopped close enough that I could feel the warmth from her shoulder. I was afraid you were going to say you loved me. I wouldn't say that. Good. A pause. Not yet, I added. She looked at me. For a second she almost laughed. Instead she shook her head. You make this very difficult. I know. Her hand found mine. No rush. No pretending it meant nothing. She squeezed once. Then let go. I don't know what we're going to be, she said. Okay. You're really okay with that? No. She smiled. That's more honest. I smiled back. She looked toward the boxes in the hallway. Then back at me. 3 months. Yeah. I'll be back. I nodded. Neither of us said what that meant. At the door she touched my arm. Okay. I looked at her hand. Then at her. Okay. And this time, neither of us needed the word to mean anything more than what it did. 3 months turned into 4. Then 5. Nothing happened the way I had imagined. There were no dramatic phone calls. No airport scene. No promises made in the middle of the night. Laura simply left for the new job. And I stayed. At first we barely spoke. A few messages. A photo of a terrible office coffee. A complaint about the weather. Once at 8:47 in the morning she sent me a picture of her breakfast with the caption, "Still can't make tea properly." I replied, "Some things shouldn't be forced." She sent back, "Like black coffee." I smiled at my phone for longer than I should have. Daniel knew eventually. Not everything. Not all at once. He was angry. Then confused. Then quiet. There were weeks when he wouldn't answer my messages. I didn't chase him. Neither did Laura. Some things had to be allowed to hurt without being immediately repaired. When she came home, she didn't tell me first. She went to Daniel's house. They talked for hours. I stayed away. That night Daniel called. "You two are serious?" I sat on the edge of my bed. "I don't know." "You do." I looked at the floor. "Yeah." There was a long silence. Then he said, "She's happy." I closed my eyes. "Yeah." Another silence. "I'm still getting used to it." "I know. Don't make me regret being okay with it." "I won't." He didn't say goodbye. He just hung up. It wasn't forgiveness. Not completely. But it was a door left open. That was enough. A few weeks later, Laura and I went back to the park. The same bench. Different weather. She brought tea. I brought coffee. She looked at my cup. Still black. Still terrible. She smiled. You never learned. Apparently not. We sat there for a while. No speeches. No explanations. Her hand rested beside mine. This time I reached for it. She let me. That was all. Our lives didn't suddenly become easy. People noticed. Some approved. Some didn't. There were awkward dinners. Unanswered questions. Occasional arguments about things that had nothing to do with our age and everything to do with being two stubborn people trying to build something ordinary. But ordinary turned out to be the part I liked most. Laura left her thermos on my kitchen counter. I forgot to return it. She stole my coffee. I complained. She ignored me. Sometimes she still woke up early and sat quietly by the window with tea while I made breakfast. Sometimes I caught her looking at me. Not the way she had at the beginning. There was less fear in it now. More familiarity. One morning the clock read 8:47. She looked at it and laughed. What? Nothing. What? She shook her head. I just remembered the first message I sent you. I smiled. The one you almost didn't send. She nodded. And you almost didn't come. I know. She reached across the table. Her fingers slipped into mine. No hesitation this time. No question waiting behind it. Just her hand. Warm. Familiar. Enough. I used to think love had to announce itself before you could believe it was real. Now I knew better. Sometimes it looked like cold coffee reheated twice. Sometimes it looked like waiting. Sometimes it looked like letting someone leave because you cared enough not to hold them there. And sometimes, if you were lucky, they came back. Not because they promised they would. Because they wanted to. Laura squeezed my hand. You're starring. I know. Why? I looked at her. Just remembering. She smiled. And that was the thing only we understood. We hadn't fallen in love when we almost crossed the line. We fell in love in all the ordinary mornings.
And guess who
after
it was?
We decided not to.
The fiancé was
Did this story
cheating
stay
with the
you?
mysterious
What kind
boss.
of quiet, real
I
love
know,
stories
dramatic,
do you want to hear
right?
next?